Hello, welcome back to Rams Talk Podcast, and we are here today to talk all about Derby's retained list. It came out yesterday. We're recording on the Sunday. It came out on the 18th, and it's the 19th today. And we're just going to go through all the players that have been released, all the players that we're in talks with, the players that have got a one-year extension, and then have a little bit of a look into Derby's weakest areas. I mean, there's some glaringly obvious ones, but we want to talk through it all the same. So joining me today to talk all about it are the three amigos. First off, we've got Adam Titley. How are you, pal?
I'm good. A little bit bored without Derby County playing every week, but then maybe come August, September, I won't be saying that. So yeah, roll on the new season, and good to see the retained list come out.
Yeah, it is good. I think it felt like we've been waiting forever for it. Who was going to stay? Who was going to go? There's some pretty strange ones, I'd say. Or there's one very strange one, and I'm sure we'll get onto that. We've also got Vik SIngh. How are you, Vik?
I'm all good. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. And Callum Boocock, how are you, pal?
I'm not too bad, mate. Not too bad. It felt like an age for this retained list, so it's glad to finally get it, and obviously let's dissect it.
Exactly, and tonight was meant to be a version of The Chase with Luke Pingu going out. We had to cancel that last minute. We've done it already. We had to cancel it last minute, so that'll go in next week. But we've got loads of current stuff to chat about. So, talking about the players that have been released, Adam, there's one player that sticks out, I think, probably more than any, and that's Joe Wildsmith, League One Golden Glove winner, most clean sheets in the league. Had a really good season, I'd say. You know, I had some moments. I mean, that Bolton game is the one that sticks out the most. That unbelievable save to keep us in it, and we went on to win. I mean, there were kind of rumours all season, weren't there, that maybe Warren wasn't the biggest fan of Wildsmith, and I think his statement maybe said a little bit of that as well. I noticed he didn't thank Ward, he didn't thank the coaching staff, he thanked everyone behind the scenes, he thanked all the players and the fans, but he didn't speak about them at all. I mean, what are your thoughts on him going?
I think it's disappointing, but on the flip side, we've seen the best of what Joe Wildsmith's had to offer so far in his career. You know, he's been a backup goalkeeper at Sheffield Wednesday for a long time, came to us, and he stepped up into that first team role, which is what we wanted him to do and also what he wanted to do. It's disappointed to see him leave on a free. It is a bit of a shock as well that he's going, but I think there was definitely some flaws to his game, his kicking for a start. I think this season we saw was lacking, and in the Championship, I think it matters that little bit more when you're playing teams who are better on the play better football on the floor. And I think it's disappointing to see Wildsmith go. I think he's been a really solid goalkeeper for us this season and last season. Before this one just gone. In truth, it's a shame to see him go, and it's disappointing to see him leave, because he is first team goalkeeper with us. Will he be in that first team choice where he goes next? I'm not so sure. He's only been first team goalkeeper for 2 years of his career. So it's disappointing to see him go, but it's one of the ones where you have to dust yourself down and move on. Players come and go in football, and I think Wildsmith is one of them. He's been a really good servant for us in the 2 years he's been here, and if he wants to move on for his career, I think fair enough, go and do it. And I'm sure we'll find a replacement that can step into the slot that has been left.
Yeah, well, I think it said a lot, didn't it, that Warren brought in Vickers, who, you know, he really did try and put Vickers into the team, and all it took was a Wildsmith wobble, and he did make his way into the team. And I mean, Vickers ended up picking up that injury. Wildsmith came back in, and it's probably good that he did, because I think Wildsmith looked a lot more solid than Vickers did, and obviously we'll get onto that a little bit later on. But Vic, it is disappointing, isn't it, to see, you know, a goalkeeper who's, as I said before, gone on to win the Golden Glove. You don't see that too often, especially at Derby. You know, he's clearly made a big impression. As Adam says, he's only played a couple of seasons as a number one. I have a feeling wherever he goes next, he'll probably be a number one as well, because he certainly showed at Derby he's got it about him. I think in my mind, he's possibly the most secure goalkeeper we've had since Carson. I don't know if you disagree, but I mean, I think back and I think Hayra, I think Roos, I think Marshall, I think of some of the clangers that they dropped over the years. I think Wildsmith had one or two mistakes in him a season, but he was relatively solid in most aspects of his game. I mean, how did you find it? What did you think?
I'd probably agree with your sentiment there. I think as a shot stopper, he was probably one of the best in the league. His distribution could have been suspect at times, but overall I think he was probably a really solid keeper, especially at League One level. I think the more disappointing thing is I think we've let him go on a free. I think it'd be nice if we could have got a fee for him, if I'm being honest, especially if he's a Golden Glove winner. It just would have been nice to maybe make a bit of money on him. But like Adam was saying, if he's got ambitions to play higher up or in a different league, then so be it. I guess we can replace him. I'm not going to say that Vickers is going to be his direct replacement. I think we're going to have to strengthen there. But yeah, I mean, we can just thank Wildsmith for the contribution he's made for us going up. I think even in the first season he was here under Rossini, he was pretty decent as well. But yeah, I think wherever he goes, he'll probably end up as a first-team goalkeeper. Disappointed to see him go. More disappointed that we didn't get a fee for him and he's gone under free. But he goes with our blessing because we got promoted with him. So yeah, he can go with that blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it said a lot that obviously we've got Sibley and Collins that are in talks for a new deal or have been offered a new deal. It didn't say anywhere that Wildsmith had been offered a new deal, which I thought was quite interesting as well. I mean, Callum, Joe Wildsmith, as we've said already, he's been so impressive this season, ended up getting the accolades he probably deserved. I mean, would you have rather he stayed, or do you think it's probably in Derby and Wildsmith's best interest if we look for someone new? Brilliant. Thanks for that, Cal.
Yeah.
So Cal's internet's as useless as it always is. But thankfully, we've got another person to add in, and it's Jamie Page. What, those glasses? How are you, mate? You're right.
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
You look sophisticated.
Well, I'm taking more of a sophisticated look into the new season. So, yeah. Thought I'd get some glasses. Why not?
I rate it. What are your thoughts on Wildsmith going?
Yeah, I think disappointed. I think you had a great season. Definitely a player that could make the jump up to the Championship. But I think I've just caught at the tail end of your discussions, and potentially wasn't fancied by Warne, and maybe when he left the team and Vickers came in, maybe he was caught in another team, and he made a decision even back then. So you never really know what happens behind closed doors. But I think the good thing is there's ample people out there that be able to come in and be a good Championship option for us. So I'm not that worried. It's just the one that I feel that potentially I would have liked to have kept, if I'm brutally honest.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I think it could have gone either way, couldn't it? It seemed like Wildsmith wasn't the happiest man in the world. I've noticed, as we've said, like he's not really talked about the manager or the coaching staff all season, let alone at the end of the season. So yeah, as Vic says, goes with our blessing, and we'll see what the future holds for him. I guess the second most contentious one, and this one surprised me a little bit, and I think there's probably a little bit of recency bias, is Corey Smith. Now, Corey Smith had a great end to the season, but I personally think that's the first good form he's had over the last couple of years. We know he's one of Derby's highest earners, in League One, so that's probably not far off that 12 grand salary cap that we had in that first year. And he's only had probably 5-10 games to show for it. So I'm surprised by the amount of people that were surprised that he's gone. But Adam, he's the wrong side of 30. But he did a job for us. Is that another one in the Wildsmith camp of you got to be happy for the job he's done, but he probably wasn't one for the future?
I think sort of. I think for me, Corey Smith, like you said, I think he's been really good in maybe only a handful of games for the 2 years that he's been here. And I think the move to come to Derby for him when he was signed under Liam Rossini was that this was his opportunity to really put a marker down at a football club and prove that he's good enough to go on and play in the Championship, whether that was with us getting promoted or getting a move himself. And I think it never really happened for him. I think last season under Rossini, and then when Paul Warne came in, I think it became apparent under Warne that he wasn't the first choice midfielder in that midfield. Don't get me wrong, we have some brilliant midfielders in Max Bird, Conor Hourihane. But I think it was always Corey Smith was fitting in around them. And I think the best game he had that previous season was probably Liverpool away. And then this season, I would say his best game was I think it was October when we played Blackpool away. And he scored and he had a really good game there. But for me, Corey Smith just never really hit form. He was too hit or miss in terms of games. And I think it's understandable that I've released him. I agree with you about the recency bias. I think he did have a good end to the season. But for me, he was way too inconsistent to warrant a Championship contract at the end of the day. He's a player who came from the Championship to us, but never really got going in that League One side. So for me, I can understand him leaving. I think now it's just a bit of a time for a change for Corey Smith. I think he needs a new club, a fresh start, and somewhere where he can try and find his form again. Because for me, I spoke to a couple of Swansea fans on a train before won the final games, and they said Corey Smith was always inconsistent for them as well. So I think it's a case of he needs a fresh start to really try and forge this end of his career. I think for me, he was too inconsistent and too many games passed him by. I think he's a player that clearly could play well in the Championship with time on the ball, but we couldn't offer that. I think too many times he took too many touches and he was dispossessed of the ball. And I think I'm not surprised that he's been let go. I think he'll definitely get a decent League One club and maybe even a Championship offer on the table. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. But I think if we were to offer him a new deal, he'd just be a squad player, and I don't think he'd get that much first team action next season. So I can understand him leaving. I'm not too surprised by it. I think it's a smart decision by Derby County, really. It frees up some of the wage bill and allows us to look at a new option in the midfield.
Yeah, it does. And Vic, I mean, as Adam said there, Smith probably wouldn't have been a starter next season. I think you'd probably hope that Smith wouldn't be a starter next season, which is nothing against him because his form at the end of the season has been great. But the Championship's a very different league. It's a much more physically demanding league than League One with regards to running. I think that gives us the money to invest better, doesn't it? I think we could probably get someone that's younger, someone that's hungrier, and could possibly offer more across an entire season than Smith, as hard as it is to say.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about him being one of the highest earners, I mean, if he's on, say, for example, 12 grand a week, then those wages are freed up, and we can maybe look at potential signings like maybe Ibu Adams, who could maybe cost a bit more depending on the situation with Cardiff. But like I said, I think a lot of the players that we got rid of, I think bar Wildsmith, are all 30 plus, and I think Vaughan wants to try and get that sort of 25 to 28, 29, well, 25 to 28 sort of peak age for his side in the Championship. Like I said, it's a physically demanding league. Me personally, I thought Corey Smith would have been alright as a squad player, but when you weigh out the pros and cons, if he is on that much money, then it does make sense to have someone that's on 12 grand a week in the Championship who may not even make the 18. So again, he come in to do a job, played right back for most of the first season, didn't really look that much out of place, but it's not his natural position. He looked better with Adams in midfield, if I'm honest. So I think when Adams came in, I think we saw the best of Smith, and that's probably why it took him so long to get his career on track with Derby. So if it is that Adams isn't there, then Smith will probably go back to his ineffective role. So yeah, like we said with Wildsmith, he goes with our blessing. Thank you for the contribution to the League One. But I think, like Adam said, it's a smart decision by Derby County, especially financially. So hopefully we can look forward to some midfield additions.
Yeah, we'll definitely get onto that later on. And Jamie, just to round it off then, Corey Smith, what do you rate his time at Derby?
I think I'll give him a 6 out of 10. I think he's been okay, pretty average, in all honesty. I don't think he's a player that's going to bar Blackpool away where he played like Lionel Messi. I don't think he really kind of pulled up any trees. But he's not really that kind of midfielder. I think he's just a midfielder that likes to tick things along. Obviously, Vic said there about Ibu Adams making him look a bit better, but I think Ibu Adams probably would have made all four of us look better in the centre mid. So yeah, I think he's done a job, but I think it was the right decision not to renew his contract. I think he was never ever going to get into our 11, and I think for me, I saw that and thought, you know what, that excites me because it means that we've hopefully got some centre mids on the radar that can come in that are going to hopefully keep our place in the Championship, because that's what it's all about. We need to ensure that next season we're keeping our status. So very excited to see the names that we're rumoured with, and ultimately who kind of comes into the club.
Absolutely, and let's try and add Cal back. You've got right in the middle. Hello, Callum. You all right, mate?
Hey, mate.
You're still lagging even now, which is pretty impressive. Very impressive. But Callum, I mean, just looking at Corey Smith, obviously, as Jamie said, probably rated him a 6 out of 10. Are you disappointed to see him go?
I think he's one of those players that's never really kicked on and made like ground in the team or anything like that. He was kind of a player that kind of was a really good squad player. and was really good for the time that he was in League One. But would I take him into the Championship? Probably not. And I agree with everything that you guys have said. So no, I'm not really sad to see him go. But I think he's been a great servant for the couple of years we were in League One.
Yeah, I agree. And we had a comment once, and it's really stuck in my head that we're the podcast where everyone just agrees with each other. So we need some more aggression. Someone needs to violently disagree, which I'm sure they will with some of the players coming up. Because the next player is Conor Hourihane, who obviously our club captain, lifted the trophy. I actually think he led us pretty well. I think he did a decent job as captain. I mean, you've got to be pretty decent to win promotion as captain of a team. He had some decent goal involvements across both seasons. Obviously, came in the EFL team of the season last season. And to be honest, I felt a little bit bad for him because he clearly had, he hasn't got the legs he once had. And without someone like Ibu Adams around him, he struggled a little bit, didn't he? I mean, Adam, let's try and speed it up a little bit with some of these players because we're 15 minutes in and we've done 2. But Conor Hourihane, I mean, he's another one, goes with our blessing, but it was definitely better for us and him for him to go.
Yeah, I think that ending statement for you sums Conor Hourihane up perfectly. Liam, I think it's great that he's moving on, and the rumours are he's going in a coaching role, and where that will be. And I think it's the right time, like you say, with his legs. I don't think we're there of what people think of Conor Hourihane. I think he got criticism at times that was, I think, fair and unfair at times throughout this past season, especially with the start of the season that we had, and then you compare it to the end. He's always had good statistics for Derby County, but I think when you watch Conor Hourihane, it doesn't always fill you with excitement. But then also he does have that moment to put a ball through the middle and set us up to score. But I think we had the expectations, or many fans had the expectations, that Hourihane would score these 30-yard screamers every other week and would be top of the league by February. But I think it was just a case of that. Conor Hourihane slowed his game down a little, but it was still very effective. And I think, it's the perfect time for both us and Conor Hourihane to part ways on a good note as that.
Yeah, and again, Vic, we talk about high earners. Hourihane was reportedly our highest earner. Obviously, that's probably, again, around the 12,000 mark, probably a little off that. But that frees up space for us, again, to get someone younger, get someone hungrier, get someone who wants it, and let Hourihane, as Adam says, go on to his coaching and do what he wants to do. I mean, he scored some vital goals for us, didn't he? That goal against Burton, I think, was that his last goal for us? Or his last goal in open play for us, or something along those lines. Late winner against Burton, and he did pop up with those moments, didn't he? That, I mean, again, another one, Oxford, our first game after administration, and he slots the ball in the bottom corner, sends Pride Park into raptures. I mean, he created some good memories, didn't he? And he definitely goes with the goodwill of the fans.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at Conor Hourihane, and he's throughout his career, he's always had special moments, and I think he's had a few moments with Derby in that sense. And I think that's probably why he was brought in. We knew he wasn't going to be the midfield maverick that he was prior, but like I said, he did a job for us. He led us by example. I thought he did pretty well in this season, if I'm honest. Got a decent assists and goals tally, so he goes with our blessing again. I know he's coaching at Villa, so I think he's probably wanting to stay in the area and move that way, move his career on. But like you said, it frees up the wages again, and especially at Championship level, if we've got 24 grand freed up from 2 players, it's a massive contribution to the pot. So yeah, he led by example, a good captain, a steady player at League One, and we can just thank you for his services.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've just had 2 players that we're not too surprised have gone, Jamie, but Dwight Gayle. Now, I was quite surprised when I saw we'd released Dwight Gayle because I thought his impact when he came in was brilliant. I mean, a goal every 100 minutes. He was by far and away our best striker that we had all season. He was levels above any of the others. His movement, his touch, his finishing, his reading of the play, his pressing, everything was miles above. Do you think it's to do with purely just his fitness? Because I know we're in talks with Collins, which I kind of get because you want, some of the players to stick around. But Gayle offers something off the bench that I don't think any of our other strikers that we have around or had around last season do. What do you reckon?
Yeah, potentially it's on injury. And again, I think what I said about Smith, seeing that just give me a little bit of hope that potentially we're going to be in the market for a striker, because if you keep Gayle, you keep Collins, and you've got Washington as well. You've got 3 strikers there. I know obviously Washington can play out wide, but that suggests to me that we're going to bring in a couple of players, or even give DeJean Brown a go maybe pre-season and see how he gets on. You never know. But yeah, I think that's probably it. Had he stayed fit all season and had he continued his good form, maybe there's a conversation to be had. But I think also Paul Warne probably saw what he did at Stoke at the same level and really struggled. So yeah, it was a hard one for me to see, because when we signed him, I can't remember feeling that excited about a signing in a little while, probably post kind of COVID and post kind of administration. It was just the name that we needed that particular time. So yeah, a shame we only got a couple of games from him, but his goals were pivotal in taking us up. So thanks very much from Dwight Gayle. He'll probably go on to be a professional paddle player, won't he now?
Probably. I mean, Callum, Gale's one of those players where every time he was on the pitch, you thought he's going to do something. I mean, even at Barnsley, when he came on, he had that lob, didn't he, that went wider than we all thought in the stand. But he just had those moments, and he was just one of those players, as Jamie said, he was so exciting when he joined. I mean, we thought we've got a striker, we've got a goal scorer now, and we've not really had. And obviously, McGoldrick scored a lot of goals, but he wasn't a goal scorer, was he? He was just really good at football. Whereas Dwight Gayle was an out-and-out goal scorer. I mean, it's sad to see a player like that go, isn't it? Because we've really not had too many of those.
No, and I think when you look at Gayle as an option, he was totally different to anything we had at the time, which is what made him such an astute signing that he was in the short time that he played. I think it was just his awareness and his probably just football knowledge in this league that just sets him apart, and appreciate his age and his fitness came to question. Obviously, in the end, it kind of wrote his season off with us, but you can't deny the impact he had. And it was probably just that little bit of a boost in the dressing room that we needed, especially up top, because we kind of became a bit stale. And he offered something completely different. As I say, Bristol Rovers was one, and you can name a couple of others where he kind of popped in, and it was, doesn't have to be goals. It was just generic play. He was clever coming in and getting in the pockets. And like you said, very, very similar to McGoldrick. But I do lean on this side of caution with taking him into the Championship. So I'm not particularly fussed on him going. And that's just me personally, because I think that we can go and get a better striker in a prime age. But again, who that is, I don't know. But Gayle was what we needed to get over the line in League One, and obviously, like everyone said, thank you for your time.
Can't wait to ask you about the Collins new deal then, Cal, after that one. Adam, I mean,
I don't want to talk about him.
Adam, next player that's gone is Martyn Waghorn. Again, I've always kind of found I love Waghorn as a bloke. He's clearly a great bloke. I've always kind of found the love in with him for his goals against Sheffield Wednesday a little bit strange, because he was hopeless all season, popped up with 2 goals at the end, and then he was worshipped like he was a god, which I always found a little bit weird, considering how poor he'd been for the entire season. I mean, he'd scored 2 goals in open play in a whole season, which is mad. Jamie would probably still claim it's 10, but I mean, he's made a massive impact at the start of the season. He scored in something like 4 or 5 games in a row, didn't he? That hat trick against Peterborough was phenomenal, and probably was the difference between us getting. I mean, there's so many moments like that, but one of the moments that proved the difference between us being in the playoffs and us being in the automatic spots. He's another one. We keep repeating ourselves. He goes with our best wishes. Who knows what he'll go on to do now? But he's one of them. He definitely wasn't ready for the Championship next season, was he?
No, I don't think he was ready for the Championship the year he played before he joined us, if I'm going to be honest. I think Martyn Waghorn now, he's definitely winding down his career, and he was winding down his career when he joined us. We will talk about him signing off the back of a testimonial. I think, Martyn Waghorn been a good player when he's played for us, I think, this season. Been more clinical than I think what we've seen the Martyn Waghorn before he left us. But I think now you can see he's winding down his career, and it's probably the completely right decision that we've not extended his contract, because I think his fitness and also that ability, that Championship ability that you need, I don't think it's there anymore. And it seems like a completely fair decision to let him go. He's been really good. Thanks for the great moments, but it's time to move on.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure JB said he was going to be our top goal scorer at the start of the season. I'm sure he said it. I'm sure he said it. But Vik, I mean, again, Waghorn, he leaves with the blessing. He couldn't really get in and around the team because he couldn't stay fit for longer than about one game towards the end of the season. He'd come back for a game, pick up an injury, go out again. Again, it's sad to see, isn't it? He's obviously a player that's will be remembered fondly by Derby fans, and I'm sure he'll always stick around in the area because he lives around here, doesn't he? So I'm sure we'll see him at games in the future. But it just had to happen, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the circumstances we signed him on, it kind of screamed a bit of desperation. When Waghorn did sign, I wasn't excited then. I'm kind of glad he's gone because, again, it frees up wages. I doubt he'd have been on a lot, but again, it just frees up a role in the side. He scored that great hat-trick against Peterborough and there wasn't much else after that. I think he probably missed a lot more opportunities than scored. I mean, Bristol Rovers, in my mind,
Northampton.
There's plenty of them, do you know what I mean? So, I love the bloke. Football ability-wise, I just think it's past him now. Like we said, he goes with our blessing, but I wasn't upset to see him go, and I'm not surprised he's left either. So hopefully, whatever he does in the future, he has all the best endeavours. But I'm not too fussed that he's gone.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all the released players. I mean, we could do a bit about Scott Loach, but his last game was against, I think, Man City's academy last year. But we saw some of the things some of the players said and how big of an impact he was behind the scenes as well. So you've got to wish him well as well. Although in his goalkeeping things he does over the summer, he won't be able to put Derby County goalkeeper anymore. He'll have to change it to former Derby goalkeeper, which I'm sure won't hit the same on the posters. But we've got two players that are out of contract that we're in talks with. Jamie, Louis Sibley is the first one. I'm not surprised that we're in talks with Louis Sibley. I mean, you're so passionate, you just punch your microphone about Louis Sibley. I thought second half of the season he was fantastic. I thought in that left wing back role he really grew. He grew. He's always got that moment in him. He can score that important goal if you need one. How many times have we, come into crunch games and Sibley's ended up popping up with the winner or the equaliser or something like that? He's only young. I think people forget that sometimes. He's got a lot of development to do, but he's played in the Championship before. He understands the level. It's a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, I'd like to see him stay, but I don't think he's a left back. I don't want him as a left back in the Championship. That's my personal opinion.
We don't play back four, mate, so you'll be all right.
Well, left wing back, wherever you want to play him, left back, left wing back. I'd want to see him as a 10, but I think that we could probably do better. So it's hard for me because I want him to stay. But if it's the case of he's asking for X amount and there's a certain player out there that we could get for the same amount of money that's potentially got a bit of a better pedigree and a bit of a better record, then I think we've got to look at that. So I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer. What I would say is I much prefer Louis. This is going to sound very contentious and I'll let you guys challenge me on this. But I'd much rather him as a 10 in the Championship than in League One.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I thought you were about to go, no, Jake.
No, I get it.
So, but does he start? I'm not too sure. I don't look at him and think.
Not every player has to start, though. That's the way I see it.
It's true, but if you're Louis Sibley, surely you'll want some assurances on your minutes for next season, I think.
Potentially. I mean, it's worth keeping in mind that there are rules in the Championship, as there are in every English league, about homegrown players. And we're running pretty low on them. Now Bird's gone. That leaves us with 3 from the academy now. So, we're probably getting close to that limit. So we need players like Sibley that are first team standard, that can do a job in multiple positions. Yes, you're probably right. He probably will want assurances over playing time, but to get that, play well. And he's played well towards the end of the season. I don't know what more he could have done. I think we've got to go into next season. And if he does sign the contract, which I'd be very surprised if he didn't, and, hit the ground running and really give it some, because under Rooney, he didn't flourish, did he? I mean, whether that was down to Sibley, whether that was down to Rooney, I mean, we've seen how well he's done developing players and teams over the last couple of years since he left us. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one, Jamie. It's a good point. Be good to see him in the 10. Good to see him scoring goals again. So that's good. I mean, let me put it to you, Callum. What do you reckon? Do you want to fight Jamie? I saw your facial expressions when he was talking.
No.
I always want to fight. I always want to fight Jamie. So No, see, for me, I understand the thought of putting him back in the 10 role. I just don't think in any game I've watched him in the 10, other than small pockets that have formed, where I think, yes, he is going to be our number 10 going forward and being that kind of dynamite player that we saw in the academy. I thought he had a really, really good end of the season last season in that left wing back role. And I think he's a good squad player for that role. I would keep him there. And I think Paul Warne will keep him there. I don't see him going to 10, in my personal opinion. And I think we can get a better, if you're going to call it 10, I don't know what Paul Warne will play next season in the Championship. We're probably going to be very, 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 very negative. But I think we can get a better attacking midfielder elsewhere, in my opinion.
Well, we'll see. Sorry, Louis. If you thought people were going to be nice to you after you played well for half a season.
You said to be controversial, mate. There you go.
I know. This is the controversy. I feel bad for Sibley because I feel like he's been under a microscope since that first season, and he really couldn't get going under Rooney. Rooney used to play Ravel Morrison, who, in my opinion, was not a good footballer for the team overall, over him every single game. So, it must have been pretty difficult for him coming into the team. I think he does really well when he drives from deep. And I think that's why this left wing back team or left wing back position suited him, because he can run at players and he's really good when he runs at players. I remember he played that pre-season game against, I think, Man United a couple of years ago. And we're talking years ago when he was like 16, and he beat 4 or 5 players down the line, won a corner. And you looked at him and thought, yeah, this is the guy. This is the man. This is the guy that's going to drag us forward. And I think he needs to refine that a bit. Maybe the 10 doesn't quite suit him because his starting position is too high. I don't know. None of us know. That's why we're all here and we're not in the dugout. So we will see. Adam, the other player that's been offered a deal, which I'm genuinely really surprised about, is James Collins. 6 open play goals last season. Every other goal was a penalty or from a set piece. As some would say. And, I feel like Collins, he works really, really hard. And I think at League One level, he's a decent mid-table League One striker. He grafts, he fights for you, he fights for the team. In the Championship against quicker players, better defenders, look at some of the players coming down in the Burnley team, in the Luton team, and the quality that they have. I fear he's just not going to have it in him, especially at his age. What do you reckon? Do you think it's the right thing to offer him a deal?
I think we're looking at it in a difficult position. Connor Washington has another year with us, a player who's not been able to keep fit while he's been with us and not be able to show the best of what he has to offer. And it's a gamble at whether he can offer that in the Championship next season. I think James Collins is a player who stepped up this season with McGoldrick leaving, but I think we're going to see either us revert to a style that heavily relies on set pieces next season, that heavily relies on James Collins
this season
popping up with goals. Well, again, popping up with goals for set pieces, or we're going to see a more technically gifted striker come into the side, maybe with a little bit more pace. And Collins will revert back to how it was when we had Dave McGoldrick and Collins both playing up front. I think we saw Collins come short a lot more, receive the ball a lot more at his feet, or try and play the knockdowns. I know that's not his main game, playing knockdowns. He prefers to be facing the goal, definitely not with his back to goal. But I think it is the right thing to do to offer him a deal. I wouldn't offer him a long-term deal at that. But let's say we offer him a 2-year deal and next season doesn't go to plan. I know the terrible idea that we might get relegated as a newly promoted side. We've still got James Collins, who can score 15 goals at a level. I'm sure he can score at least 10 at Championship level at that. So I think it's the right thing to do to offer him a deal. He's most likely not going to be the highest earner in the team, I think. But he's a striker who's proved it this season. Hopefully he can step up next season. I think he's got something to prove next season as well. He had something to prove this season. I think he's got to do it again next season. But no doubt we'll bring in another striker to contest him and put that sort of fight for places in the side. So I think it's a fair thing to do to offer Collins a deal. I think he's got that ability to score from set pieces as a striker, which some don't. And off the back of the season he's had, I think he'd be warranted another contract with us.
That's interesting that you brought up a few things there. The fact that he'd score 15 goals. How old will he be in that year? How old is he now? I can't do the maths. He's 33 now, so he'd be 35 if we give him a 2-year deal playing in League One. I think we talked about sentiment earlier with Corey Smith and how, we could get better than that. We only have one midfielder pretty much with him going. I feel like Collins is on the same level. You know what I mean? I feel like he's another one that he'd only get a contract as a backup because he's reliable. He's one of Derby's highest earners at the minute. Again, reportedly one of Derby's highest earners, and he'd have to take a big pay cut because otherwise you're throwing 8-9 grand down the drain for a player that definitely won't be good enough to play in the league. I mean, how many goals did he get last time he played in the Championship? 3 in the season before he got 10, and that's when he was 3 years younger. He was 29. He got 10. In his last season he got 3, and Cardiff were so desperate to offload him they terminated his contract so he could join us. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy to have around, and if we do sign him, I can see the importance of that. But Vik, I mean, we've got to bring strikers in, haven't we? Because, I mean, obviously we'll get onto it, but we need more pace, we need more power, we need someone that's going to terrorise Championship defences, because at the minute, if we sign Collins, if we keep Washington, that's not an attack that's going to scare anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, with no disrespect to him, I think League One is probably his level. He's done a job for us there. He's got his 15, 20 goals, whatever it was, or 19, 40. I think, whatever he finished on. But like I said, it did the job for us in the end. If he was to stick around, I think he'd have to take a pay cut and realise that he's not going to be playing every week. He might not even make the bench sometimes. I think the one with Conor Washington, Conor Washington offers a little bit different in terms of he can stretch the play, maybe running behind. So, and I think he's slightly younger as well. So, I mean, we talk about Paul Warne and the regeneration of this side and wanting to bring in the peak ages. I think we have to sort of move on from the 32, 33 plus players, because we know that they're not going to have any longevity in this, especially in this division, and especially if we've got aspirations to stay up and then move up the table. With Collins, I think if he's going to stay, he has to take a pay cut and realise he's not going to be a starter. But again, I won't be sad to see him go either. So it's just one of those for me.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think we've got to say we're not being harsh to Collins. I think you've got to take a step back sometimes and realise, all these players in their mid-30s, if they all stay because they won us promotion or we like them or whatever, we're not going to do well in the Championship. And I think for some reason, a lot of Derby fans have always already consigned us to, the bottom 5. And I find that kind of bizarre. It's a bit of a weird way to view football, as, we've got up, we're going to be one of the worst. We comfortably stayed up with a team of academy players a couple of years ago. If not for the biggest points deduction, or one of the biggest points deductions in history, we stayed up. We beat teams like Fulham, we beat teams like Bournemouth. I mean, Liam Thompson ran rings round Fulham, and he's still here, and he played in League One and didn't pull up any trees there. So I don't think we should be negative. I think we've got to be so positive going into this season. We've just won promotion. A lot of the core of our squad is still here. I mean, we've got to talk about the 1-year extensions. Liam Thompson's got one. Craig Forsyth's got one. Tom Barkhazen's got one. All 3 are really good options. But we have to talk about the weakest areas we have now, because just looking at it, in central midfield, we only have Tomo and Tyrese Forner, who really couldn't get involved all season, really struggled to sort of really do anything. Strikers, we've got Washington and DeJean Brown are our 2 only options, and Brown's never scored a goal above National League level. And then we've only got, we need a keeper. We could really do with a keeper, because Vickers, I don't think impressed massively when he played last season as well. So, we ended up losing our number 1 at the same time. So we desperately need to improve in those positions. I mean, Jamie, when you're looking at Derby's team, where should we be improving the most? And is it basically the exact list that I just said?
Yeah, I think it's the exact list that you said. And we knew that it was going to be a complete rebuild, whether we got promoted or whether we stayed in League One. So this isn't a surprise. I think the situation is that we're just going to be able to go and get a better caliber of player now that we've been promoted. So, I mean, that goes without saying. I think the positive is that there's still players out there, because during COVID and still now, teams are offering shorter contracts. So there's going to be people that are available for free. I think there's also going to be potentially some players that are playing League One that we potentially would be sniffing around that could make the step up. I know that Herbie Kane's been rumoured, and there's been some really good performances by individuals that we've played against this season. I've got a list that I've made that I'm sure we'll go through on a future episode. But I think there's players that can make the step up that potentially we can prize away, and I think there's a lot of free agents that we could bring in. But the one thing that we saw, and it's always the case with a promoted team or a championship winning team, there's always a good harmony. But I actually felt that to the back end of this season that there really was that harmony within the team. And I think it takes a collective, but then it also takes your players like your Hourihanes, your James Collins, the players that are going to put an arm around the shoulder and almost be Paul Warren, but on the pitch. So whilst we are talking about those key age groups that we want to bring in, well, I think we also need to probably add a little bit of experience and potentially a captain as well. I spoke about it in the group chat.
We've still got Sonny Bradley.
Can you hear me?
I think you keep forgetting. Yeah, we can.
You did the face where I was lagging.
Yeah.
That was your lagging face.
Oh, that's my Sonny Bradley face. We've got an ex-captain of a promotion to the Premier League side. I mean, you talk about arms around it. Surely he's got to be your man.
I don't think so. Not for me. I'm still hanging on to Northampton.
Northampton
away.
We can't move on.
Yeah, so I just think we need a bit more. As much as we need players in that peak age that are going to run and do what Paul Warren wants them to do, I think potentially we need a sprinkle of experience as well. And I'm excited to see who Paul Warren and the recruitment team have in mind. Obviously, they've had a long time to prepare for this. Knowing that we could get promoted, could stay in League One. So hopefully we've got the plans in place that come the start of the season, we're raring to go. Yeah,
it has to be said, we've still got Nelson, Bradley, Forsyth, Mendes Lang. I think Barkhuizen's 30 now as well. Washington. We've got a fair few players that are over 30 still, but I know exactly what you mean. I think we need to, as you said, complete rebuild, isn't it? Carl, what are you thinking? If you're going to pick 3 positions where we could improve and only those 3 positions, which 3 would you pick?
I would go striker, I would go centre mid, and I would go goalkeeper. Those are my 3. Those are my main 3 of the spine. We need a striker that's proven in the division. Again, that obviously I've said before, can be that focal point for us. Centre mids, we need probably 2 or 3 of those, and probably one that we're all hoping will return, but along with him, a youthful and energetic centre, because that's what Paul likes to play, and then a goalkeeper who can really, really take this number 1 spot and make it his own. And because I agree with you, Jake, I just don't think Vickers is my number 1 going into the Championship. So I do think that we need another goalkeeper. So those are probably my 3 that I would like to see, probably out of the 15 odd players that we're going to sign this summer, join us in the Championship next season.
Right, Adam, on the spot, who would you sign? Give us one player. Give us a name. Who jumps straight into your head?
Lincoln
Messi.
Goalkeeper, 19 clean sheets, 77% save percentage. Yes,
What's
I have been researching players. Lucas Jensen, I think. I might have got that wrong. I'm 25 years old. Shouldn't be a high price tag. Could be a very decent addition.
Very good, very good. And Vic, I hope you've been thinking really hard over this past 10 seconds, because I'm putting the same to you. Who's impressed you most?
I got a couple in mind. So obviously Ibu Adams is the obvious choice for midfield, but a striker, the one that was on loan at Lincoln, on loan from Luton. No, but I think there's potential there. If we're looking at the young market, I think him as well. So yeah, those are the 2 for me.
Yeah, and with Luton coming down, he'll probably end up playing for them, won't he, next season, which is a bit disappointing. But yeah, that's it. We go into the season, don't we, with optimism. I think we've probably made the right decisions regarding players. I think we can all probably agree on that. I think 99% of the fans agree we've probably made the right decision as well. So yeah, we're going to the new season. We'll see what Sibley and Collins is. It's so hot in here, I genuinely can't think anymore, by the way. I've completely lost it. I had to close my window because people were shouting outside, and I'm really suffering. My brain is suffering. Jamie, parting message. What have you got for us?
Well, I thought you were going to ask me who I'd sign.
No, I'm not interested in that.
All right. Parting message.
Save it for in a few weeks.
I'll save it. We won't give everything away. The party made. Well, I've obviously not been on since we got promoted. So
Oh,
up
yeah.
the Rams,
Yeah.
up the Rams. It was lovely to see that in South Africa. I'm gutted I missed the celebrations with all you lot. But yeah, I think the countdown now is on. We get the fixtures. We're going to get the new Puma home shirt as well, which I'm going to pre-order. That's going to be the first shirt that I buy new. I'm not going to buy it at a discounted rate or anything like that. I'm going to buy it full price. So yeah, looking forward to that, and yeah, everything's looking forward to the championship, and who knows what will happen. Ipswich did it, so why can't we believe?
Exactly. We need to believe. And Callum, we've got a comment from AC says we need to be more optimistic with the retain list. Some players been released as a surprise, but we've got plenty of time. I think that's the important thing, isn't it? That's the message. We've got loads and loads of time to build a team. If it's 2 days before the season starts and we've only got one centre mid, yeah, fair enough. But at the same time, you know, we've got plenty of time. It's rumoured we've already signed 2 or 3, including a goalkeeper as well. So, you know, we've got to be positive, haven't we? We've got to go into the season with optimism because we've got a real chance of having a really strong season in the Championship.
Yeah, it's one of those that we're back where we kind of we remember in the last 2-3 years, it's been very, very weird. I mean, we're not going to be signing players like 2 days before the season starts and then having like 9 signings on one day, all at Moor Farm and stuff. All that's kind of gone. We've got a full pre-season, looking forward to the Championship, and it'll be very, very interesting because it's kind of a new beginning, and obviously, like I said, Paul Warne can really put his stamp on this team. No longer can he say that it's obviously using Rossini's players. This is his team now, so let's see what he does in the Championship.
Yeah, let's see what he does. So thank you so much for listening. If you did enjoy, please do give us a like, even if you don't agree with everything we said, and leave a comment down below on your thoughts on the retain list as well. We've had some which have been great in the live, but if you want to leave yours below, it'd be good to read them and see what you think. If you did enjoy, please do rate us 5-star on Spotify and Apple Pods. Makes a big difference for us as well. So it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
As Callum said, it's a new beginning. We're back up into the Championship. Up the Rams. We'll see you soon.